Have you ever sat across from someone, heart trembling with silent hope, trying to decode the meaning behind a message left on read? You tell yourself he's just busy. You convince yourself that the late replies, the shifting energy, the vague answers, they're all circumstantial. You sit there, clinging to fragments of attention, desperately trying to assemble them into a mosaic of love. But deep down, you already know. You feel it in the silence between his words. You feel it when your heart races at a message that simply says, "What's up?" because you've been starving for something more. You feel it when you find yourself shrinking to fit the space he gives you, and even that space is never guaranteed. This isn't love, it's limbo, and he didn't put you there. You allowed yourself to stay there, waiting, hoping, bargaining with your worth. Let's call this what it is. A soul-numbing waiting room where women leave pieces of their self-respect behind, one unanswered text at a time. So if you're here right now listening to these words, something inside you already knows that you've been living on the outskirts of someone else's priorities. You know what it feels like when he calls you only when he's bored, when he touches base just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to offer clarity. You know what it's like when the you fantasize about is made entirely of what-ifs and one-sided dreams. This is not the story you are meant to write with your life. This is where it begins to change. Because today we're not just talking about the signs. We're not just outlining red flags. We're diving deeper into the why you stay, the how it began, and most importantly, the who you must become to rise out of this. Let's start with a truth that will sting before it sets you free. When a man sees you as an option, it means he does not fear losing you. And when someone doesn't fear losing you, they never truly value you. Love without the fear of loss becomes convenience, not commitment. But this is not about vilifying him. This is about reclaiming your power, your time, your tenderness, all the things you've given away without return. And that reclamation begins the moment you learn to recognize the signs. So let's unravel the first one. Sign #1. He gives you just enough to keep you close, but never enough to feel secure. It's the emotional breadcrumbing, the sweet message after days of silence, the call when you finally start to pull away, the sudden interest when he senses your energy is slipping from his grip. It's not love, it's maintenance. Have you ever seen a gambler at a slot machine? They keep pulling the lever, pouring in their coins, not because they're winning, but because every once in a while, the machine lights up and spits out just enough to keep the dream alive. That's what intermittent reinforcement does to the human brain, and it's dangerous. This isn't accidental. In psychology, we know that the most addictive kind of reward is inconsistent. It's the maybe that keeps people hooked. It's the "he used to be so sweet," the "he had a rough childhood," the "maybe it'll get better next month." You are not confused. You are being conditioned. And what makes it even more cruel, sometimes that small dose of affection feels so good because you're starving for it. But here's what no one tells you. Love should never feel like survival. You are not meant to thrive on crumbs. You are not meant to feel relieved when someone finally gives you the bare minimum. When someone loves you truly, deeply, their affection doesn't feel like a reward you have to earn. It feels like breath, like warmth, like truth. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, there was a woman named Elena. She met a man, charming, funny, mysterious. He told her everything she wanted to hear in the beginning. Promised they'd go to Greece together. Said he wasn't ready yet, but he could see a future with her. So she waited. He'd disappear for days, then resurface with flowers and apologies, then vanish again. She kept believing in the potential of him, in who he could become, not who he was. Months turned into years. She stayed because leaving felt like wasting everything she'd invested. But that's the fallacy. Staying longer doesn't redeem the time lost, it compounds it. Eventually she left, not because he changed, but because she did. One morning she looked in the mirror and saw someone she didn't recognize, someone tired, someone smaller than she remembered. And she whispered to herself, no more. She didn't need closure, she needed clarity and courage. Sometimes that's all it takes. Sign #2, he keeps his options open, and you on hold. Here's the thing about modern dating. With apps and DMs and infinite swipes, it's easy to believe that there's always someone better around the corner. And some people, especially emotionally unavailable men, feed off that illusion. If he's still active on dating apps while talking to you, if he avoids defining the relationship after months of intimacy, if he tells you he's not ready for anything serious, but expects you to be loyal, that's not confusion, that's clarity on his end. You are his backup plan, his placeholder, the comfort between adventures. You are the certainty he returns to when the thrill runs dry. And here's the most painful part. He may genuinely like you, he may even care, but not enough to choose you. And love that does not choose you is not love. It's tempting to think you can change his mind. That if you're just patient, or more understanding, or prettier, or more chill, he'll eventually see your worth. But let me tell you something radical. A man who cannot see your value now will not see it later. He'll only see what he can get away with. You are not auditioning. You are not a contestant in some invisible competition. You are a woman, fierce, tender, full of light, and your presence is not something that should be weighed against others. It should be honored. But that can't happen until you honor yourself first. Let's pause here and talk about self-respect, because this is the part that stings the most. You stayed because you didn't believe you were enough on your own. You stayed because being half-loved felt better than being alone. You stayed because the unknown was more terrifying than the pain you already understood. But let me ask you something. How much longer will you betray yourself just to feel temporarily chosen? Every time you let him come back without accountability, you are teaching your nervous system that inconsistency is love. You are rewriting your definition of what you deserve. You are making it harder to leave, because the longer you stay, the more you normalize the bare minimum. But you were not born for this kind of ache. Your soul was not built to beg. Remember Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt. She was not just a woman of legendary beauty, but of power, intellect, and influence. She didn't chase kings, she commanded empires. Do you think she waited by the window, wondering if Caesar would text her back? Powerful women don't wait to be chosen. They choose themselves. And this moment right now is your first step toward becoming that woman. The kind of woman who doesn't tolerate uncertainty. The kind of woman who doesn't need to be someone's maybe. The kind of woman who doesn't fear walking away, because she knows that peace is better than false hope. But we're just beginning. The next signs will shatter illusions, challenge your deepest fears, and force you to face the part of you that has been complicit in your own mistreatment. And it's not about blame, it's about awakening. Because once your eyes are opened, they can never close again. You can't unsee the truth. And the truth is, someone who truly wants you won't risk losing you. So ask yourself this, with every unanswered question, every confusing moment, every delayed reply, is he really confused, or is he just comfortable? You deserve better than comfort. You deserve clarity. You deserve commitment. You deserve to be the choice, not the option. You see, the thing about emotional limbo is it's not loud. It doesn't scream abuse. It doesn't leave bruises you can point to. It's quiet, subtle, a slow erosion. You start by waiting an extra hour for a reply. Then you stop asking where he's been. Then you apologize when he forgets your birthday because maybe he's just going through something. And before you know it, you're a stranger to yourself. Not all prisons have bars. Some are made of unanswered questions. Some are made of almosts. And the most painful part, you're the one holding the key. You could walk out, but something inside you is still hoping he'll give you a reason to stay. Let's move into it. We've talked about breadcrumbing. We've talked about being on hold while he keeps his options open. But now it's time to face one of the most deceptive signs of all. Sign #3. He shows up only when it's convenient for him. This one hits differently because it often wears the mask of effort. It feels like he does show up, just not consistently. He's there when he's lonely. He calls when he's had a bad day. He invites you over at midnight after a night out. He tells you you're the only one who really gets him. And it feels intimate. It feels like progress. But it's not. Because here's what you'll start to notice. His timing is always about him. You don't get him on the days that matter. You don't get him when you're the one falling apart. You don't get him when he's happy, grounded, or celebrating something big. You get him when he's empty, when he needs something from you. You become his emotional crutch, his warm body on a cold night, his therapist, his fan club, his distraction from the chaos of his own unhealed life. And here's the worst part. You mistake this dependence for intimacy, but needing someone isn't the same as valuing them. And showing up sporadically isn't love, it's emotional convenience. Let's go deeper. There's an old saying from Stoic philosophy: he who does not show up when it is hard was never present when it mattered. In other words, if a man disappears during the hard parts, the messy conversations, the questions about where this is going, the emotional vulnerability, then he is not showing up for you. He is showing up for himself. True commitment isn't about who's there when it's easy. It's about who stays present when it's difficult, when being there requires courage, emotional maturity, and effort. Anyone can send flowers after a fight, but real men don't disappear to avoid the fire. They stand in it with you. Think back. How many times has he gone silent when you needed reassurance? How many times did he change the subject when you brought up the future? How many times did he tell you, let's not complicate things, when all you wanted was clarity? Convenience is not commitment. And if you keep letting someone show up only on their terms, you'll slowly start editing your needs just to keep them comfortable. You'll stop expressing your pain. You'll stop asking for more. You'll convince yourself that this is just how he is. And before long, you'll call that love. But that's not love. That's self-abandonment. It's time to say it out loud. If he can't show up for you consistently, he doesn't deserve a place in your life permanently. You are not a hotel he checks into when the world is too hard. You are not a vending machine he presses when he needs validation. You are a whole person, with needs, with dreams, with a heart that should never be borrowed just for temporary relief. Let's shift the lens now, because this is the part where you start reclaiming your power. There is nothing wrong with you for wanting consistency. There is nothing wrong with you for needing reassurance, clarity, or affection. These are not weaknesses. These are human truths. The problem isn't that you ask for too much. The problem is that you're asking someone who gives too little. Let's take a pause and breathe that in. You are not hard to love. You are not too emotional. You are not too needy. You are just asking the wrong person. Let's move now into something more subtle, yet devastatingly chem. Sign #4. He avoids defining the relationship, but wants the benefits of one. This is where it gets tricky. He tells you he's not ready for anything serious. He says he wants to go with the flow. He tells you he's figuring himself out, and yet he texts you every night. He gets jealous when you go out. He expects you to be available, loyal, emotionally invested. He wants you without having you. You find yourself in this gray zone, a place that looks like a relationship, sounds like a relationship, feels like one, but isn't. There's no commitment, no clarity, no direction, just endless vibes and unspoken rules. It's the perfect arrangement for him. He gets all the perks of a girlfriend, your emotional labor, your presence, your affection, without any of the responsibility. Meanwhile, you live in a state of constant emotional uncertainty. You overanalyze every word. You second-guess every move. You live in fear of ruining the vibe by simply asking for clarity. But here's the thing. If asking where you stand scares him off, he was never standing with you in the first place. When a man values you, he won't let you wonder. He won't fear the conversation. He won't label you crazy for wanting to define what you already are. In ancient times, warriors marked their shields with the names of what they swore to protect, their tribe, their home, their lovers. Because what you name, you take responsibility for. And what you refuse to name, you keep as temporary. So ask yourself, why are you letting someone use you when they're not willing to claim you? This is not about forcing someone into a label. It's about mutual understanding, shared intention, emotional safety. You are not trying to trap him, you're trying to build something. But you can't build a future with someone who refuses to name the present. And yet, so many stay. Why? Because ambiguity gives you hope. You tell yourself, maybe he's just afraid. Maybe he just needs more time. Maybe if I just don't pressure him, he'll come around. But hope, when given to the wrong person, becomes a weapon against yourself. Don't be the woman who waits while her heart quietly breaks. Be the woman who knows that her love is not a trial period, that her time is not a free sample, that her worth is not up for negotiation. And that brings us, gently, painfully, to the final sign. Sign #5. Your intuition has been screaming, and you've been silencing it. This is not about him anymore. This is about you. You've felt it in your gut, that ache, that whisper, that knowing. You've had nights where your chest was tight with unspoken sadness. You've rehearsed conversations in your head 1,000 times. You've cried in bathrooms so no one would see. And still, you stayed. Because sometimes, staying feels easier than starting over. Because sometimes, the fear of being alone is louder than the pain of not being chosen. But let me tell you something sacred. Your intuition is not wrong. It never has been. You knew from the beginning. You just didn't want to believe it. You wanted the fairy tale, the movie moment, the change. But change doesn't happen when you wait for someone else to choose you. Change begins the moment you choose yourself. You are not weak for loving deeply, but you become weak when you abandon yourself to keep someone else. You don't need another sign. You don't need a final betrayal to give you permission. You don't need closure from someone who never gave you consistency. You just need to decide. Decide that you will no longer be someone's maybe. Decide that your heart is not a halfway house for men who don't know what they want. Decide that your future will not be written by fear, but by freedom. You are more than the almost he offers. You are the whole damn story. And here's what happens when you walk away from being someone's option. You make space for someone who sees you as the only choice. You open your life to a man who doesn't just want you, he respects you. Who doesn't just love you when it's convenient, but stands beside you when it matters. Who sees your value and never makes you question it. That kind of love, it begins with you. Because when you finally stop begging for the bare minimum, you begin attracting the extraordinary. So now we've walked through the signs, the breadcrumbing, the emotional convenience, the refusal to commit, the avoidance of definition, and finally, the inner voice you've been drowning out. And here you are, not just with information, but with something far more sacred, clarity. And clarity is the birthplace of power. You're no longer wondering if he's keeping you as an option. You know it. You've seen it, felt it, lived it in sleepless nights and second-guessing mornings. But now comes the question that matters more than all of that. What are you going to do with that truth? Because the truth doesn't set you free unless you act on it. Let's talk about the reality most people run from. Walking away isn't the hardest part. Staying gone is, because the moment you decide to choose yourself, something inside him will feel that shift. Suddenly, the attention you begged for appears. The text you've waited weeks for drops in at 2 a.m. Hey, it says, I miss you. And your heart, that faithful, loyal, deeply feeling heart, will want to believe it. It will tell you, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the moment he finally gets it. But let me say this as clearly as I can, missing you and valuing you are not the same thing. He might miss the attention. He might miss the comfort. He might miss the way you made him feel important. But that doesn't mean he's ready to give what you need. It just means he's uncomfortable now that you've stopped orbiting around him. And here's the most painful truth of all. The moment you start choosing yourself, the people who only benefited from your self-abandonment will try to pull you back. But you are not theirs to reclaim. You are yours to protect. Let's pause here for a moment, because I want you to really sit with this. You are not too much. You are not unlovable. You are not asking for fairy tales. You're asking for reciprocity. You're asking for clarity. You're asking for emotional safety. And those are not luxury items in love. They are the foundation. So if a man cannot meet you there, he does not belong in your life. Let me ask you something personal. Not for judgment, not for shame, but for your liberation. How many times have you lowered your standards just to keep someone from leaving? How many times have you said, it's fine when it wasn't? How many times have you made excuses for someone who wouldn't even offer a real explanation? How many pieces of yourself have you handed over, just hoping it would finally be enough? And now, how much longer will you keep doing that? Because love, real love, doesn't leave you in confusion. Real love doesn't weaponize silence. Real love doesn't disappear when you need clarity. Real love doesn't demand you shrink. It expands you. It grows you. It heals, steadies, and builds. And real love starts with you loving yourself enough to stop accepting anything less. Let's return to something ancient, something wise. A story that's older than modern dating, apps, and texting games. The story of Penelope. In Homer's Odyssey, Penelope waits for her husband, Odysseus, who is lost at sea. For 20 years, she is pursued by suitors, men who want her hand, her crown, her body, but not her soul, not her pain, not her loyalty, not her story. And so every day she weaves a burial shroud, and every night she unravels it. A quiet rebellion, a refusal to settle. She will not marry until the man who truly values her returns. Penelope wasn't passive. She was patient. She wasn't weak. She was wise. She knew you do not give your heart to men who only want your throne. But the modern Penelope isn't waiting on a man to return. She's waking up to her own sovereignty. She's saying, I will not be chosen casually. I will not be tolerated in silence. I will not be an option in a man's rotation. I will be loved fully, deeply, courageously, or I will be alone and whole, not attached and broken. Let me tell you something that might change your entire perspective. Being alone is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Being in the wrong relationship, the one that makes you question your worth every day, is you are not here to audition for a role in someone's life. You are not a placeholder. You are not a woman who waits in the wings while someone figures it out. You are not just an option. You are the table, the feast, the celebration. And the moment you decide that, truly decide, the world changes around you. Not instantly, not perfectly, but profoundly. Because suddenly, the men who once had access to your softness, your nurturing, your effort, without earning it, no longer get to walk through the door, and you realize you were never too much. You were just giving everything to someone who saw you as a convenience instead of a crown. Let me talk to the part of you that's still afraid. The part that wonders, what if I never find someone better? That's not your voice. That's your trauma speaking. That's your history of being overlooked, ignored, used, and silenced, echoing through your bones. But that voice is not your truth. Here's the real truth. You don't need someone better. You need to become someone braver. Braver about boundaries. Braver about walking away. Braver about sitting in the silence until the right energy finds you. You are not here to be tolerated. You are not here to convince someone to love you. You are here to be loved in your fullness. And until that day comes, your job is not to wait. Your job is to rise, to rebuild, to become so grounded in your worth that you no longer chase people who treat you like an intermission instead of the main act. There is a version of you, on the other side of this heartbreak, who is not afraid anymore. She's not afraid to eat alone. She's not afraid to sleep in her own bed. She's not afraid to say no to a man who only texts her at midnight. She's not afraid to cut off energy that confuses her. She is not bitter. She is better, not because of him, but in spite of him, because she realized that healing is not just about forgetting, it's about remembering who you were before you started shrinking for other people's comfort. You are her, she is you, she's waiting, and she's ready to stop being an option and start living like the prize she's always been. So as we close this journey, I want you to promise something to yourself, not to me, not to him, to you. Promise that you will never again stay where love has to be begged for. Promise that you will never again confuse attention with intention. Promise that you will never again silence your intuition just to keep someone who is already halfway out the door. Promise that the next time someone tries to make you an option, you'll choose yourself, because the woman who chooses herself is unforgettable. She's magnetic. She's powerful. She's free. And once you taste that freedom, no man who offers half love will ever satisfy you again. This is not the end. This is your beginning. Walk away, stand tall, choose yourself, and never, not for a moment, forget what you deserve.